Do you ever wonder what a modern day leftist actually means when they talk about justice?
Before this trial even began, the judge ruled in our favor and found that Donald Trump did engage in years of significant financial fraud we uncovered.
Yeah, so before the trial even began, it was over. It was decided. It was fixed. And this is what justice sounds like in America to these people, especially when the person sitting across the table from the government is a Trump. Now, regardless of what looks right, what looks wrong, what it actually is, now every half-wit leftist in existence is going to be all wound up like a kid toy, just repeating, incessantly repeating, Trump is guilty, fraud this, fraud that, 364 million, Trump, 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 guilty. They don't understand the distinction, first off, between criminal or civil. They don't want to understand it. They don't know the difference between liable or guilty. And honestly, it wouldn't be important to them even if they did know the difference. Those sorts of things, those semantics are only important when a Democrat is in the hot seat, as rare as that actually is. But there are some important things to know here, especially for the people who are self-professed believers in justice. This is a civil case in a hyper partisan court run by a state's attorney general who literally campaigned on the promise of suing and destroying Donald Trump. You find the man, I'll find the crime. May as well been her campaign slogan. And to cap all that off, we have a clueless cuck of a judge who's married to a Democrat activist. A judge who, like they said at the top, like you saw at the top, decided the case in a summary judgment before it even began, before one witness was heard. None of that is surprising. The fine, however, that is pretty surprising. $364 million and a ban on doing business in the state of New York for 3 years, which, by the way, of the 150 or so cases brought under this statute with no actual victim, this is the first one in the entire history of the law to come with any kind of a ban. And of course, the leftists of the world, they question nothing and they just clap like a bunch of trained seals. But in case I've missed something, here's essentially what's going on.
And we are now looking at this. Of course, I jetted to the bottom to see what we can find in the conclusion. And there are several big numbers in there. The judge talks about in this finding Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Alan Weisselberg, and others involved in this, as you said, had already decided that they had been fraudulent in some way. One of the first things he orders is that several of them together, including Donald Trump, and his trust and Trump organization will be have to pay $168 million and change. The next paragraph goes on to say that there's another ruling for $126 million and change. Another one for $60 million. Now, we'll have to look and see if any of those are overlapping or if we add these up. But these are some of the numbers coming out. Goes on to say that Eric Trump has to pay $4 million in one case, Donald Trump Jr. $4 million in one of these cases, and Alan Weisselberg $1 million. So there's a lot there. We're going to parse through these numbers, but they are big. Incredible. We knew there was a big ask. It looks like they may be in the neighborhood of close to $300 million or more.
Yeah, Shannon, we are seeing this. I believe this is a Reuters report. We're all trying to sort of balance up these numbers here. But according to some of the reporting out there, the number is $354.9 million. And as you say, the damages are spread across a number of the Trump family members who are deeply involved in the business. Don Jr., Eric Trump, as you say, $4 million. Now, perhaps equally importantly, according to the early reporting that we're seeing here, the judge has banned Donald Trump and others from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation or other legal entity in New York for 3 years.
I think what we have to consider here is this is a case using an obscure law that has actually never been applied exactly like it is right here. All so that the Attorney General can fine the Trump organization for a crime that has absolutely no victim. No one was actually defrauded in this fraud. I mean, figure that out. If the guy's so bad, why can't you find a real fraud, one with an actual victim? But anyway, the state didn't lose any tax revenue. The banks didn't get a dime less than the loan required. And generally, in a fraud case that has sizable fines attached, those fines primarily go to making the victims whole. That's at least part of the whole metric to figuring out what is owed. In this case, these are just punitive damages to a man that the left just wants to damage. I mean, that's kind of their thing. That's what they want. But the crazy thing is this is so egregious that even some of the truly Trump deranged leftists are a little surprised by the final tally.
Statements might not be so lucky.
You know, I'm looking for a little bit of reporting that the Associated Press did regarding these sorts of decisions, these sorts of investigations, these trials. I'm just not finding it in this pile of papers that I have in front of me. But basically, they said they went back over 70 years and looked at all the cases that have been tried under this rule 36 or 6312, which is used here, which doesn't have to show harm done. That's not the burden. You don't have to show that anybody was hurt by your practices. There's nobody you defrauded specifically. But they went back and they looked at cases over 70 years. I believe it was about 150 cases, and found that there was no case where there was a ban on doing business where there wasn't harm shown. So even though that the threshold is harm shown, in the past, it has only been used to ban someone doing business when it's been shown that somebody was hurt. Say you're selling cosmetics that are poisoning you. There's somebody that was hurt there. The cosmetics company gets banned. Is this fair to go after Donald Trump like this in this environment? Is my question.
Yeah. So even Katie Tur and MSNBC, they seem a little bit confused about how the crime and the punishment actually line up. And when MSNBC is asking in a Trump case, is this fair? I think that's pretty clear that this is a punishment and really a case that probably would only be brought against a Trump, which really, when you think about it, is good. It's probably the reason that Trump will never end up paying a dime in the end when everything finally unwinds and all the higher courts and the appeals and all that. But as it sits right now, this is the most costly victimless crime in the history of American justice. And of course, I use the term American justice as loosely as I possibly can. It's essentially politically motivated extortion is all this is, and selective prosecution at its core. And if you still question that, just a reminder of who Letitia James truly is.
He leaves office as a private citizen. He will no longer have presidential immunity.
Days of this president are numbered. We will rise up together and we will resist this president. Bring him down.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain. He's going to know my name personally.
I love it.
If you are a leftist and you think that justice was actually done here, and you think that what you're just seeing here is all okay, then you got to do some serious soul searching. You got to figure out what you truly believe and why you believe it. And figure out to yourself, are those your thoughts? And if they are your thoughts, please describe in the comments how this is justice and how this is right. And if you're still confused, if you think, well, maybe she's a little overzealous, but it sounds like the guy committed a crime. Kevin O'Leary, one of the guys from the Shark Tank and a pretty heavy-hitting real estate developer himself, he gave his opinion on this case not too long ago, and he puts it away I think even a Trump deranged leftist can probably understand.
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute, and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million, and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million. And you fight it out. You're always trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you can possibly determine for them. Every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, when I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do. This is what they do all day long, every day.
Yeah, nailed it, man. I mean, Donald Trump was selected for prosecution for doing business in the manner and style that business actually gets done. And not just in New York, but all over the freaking world. And he was selected after a power-hungry, super creepy voiced Attorney General promised low information, single issue voters of New York that she was going to sue and she was going to destroy Donald Trump. And again, leftists from coast to coast, they cheer that this is justice and they just clap like a bunch of trained seals because that's essentially what they are. But they're missing a key point because no one thinks to even understand how things work. They probably have never even had a loan, most of them. When a loan goes through underwriting, the bank does their own due diligence. They put the final number on the property, not the property owner. When you go buy a car, which is the most common thing for most people, the bank doesn't care what the dealership says the car's worth. They only care what they think it's worth, what they decide it's worth. But anyway, I think a couple things are going to happen here. First, this is all going to get stayed. No one's going to have to pay anything for a very long time, if ever. And eventually, I think most of it, if not all of it, is going to get destroyed on appeal. That's to be expected. That's just the way it works. They get their hit right now, and then it all unwinds. But the thing I think most people haven't even considered, developers who are already looking for reasons to get their business out of New York City, they're going to get the hell out of New York City, a place that is already experiencing a pretty significant housing crisis, right? All while Trump gets stronger and stronger with every attack. I mean, who knew? I mean, it's not like they haven't seen that before, but this is what you get when you allow partisan politicians to weaponize justice just to fit their own personal or political desires, basically. But that's just my take, guys. Let me know yours in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.